Hi, from my community, I did my old college newspaper, the Campus Voice, when I attended Florida State College in Jacksonville. And the reason why I did this community is just because it's something that was the reason why I got into journalism. So it was probably one of the first communities I've been a part of. So I went ahead and just did this based on my experience with the Campus Voice. So this community is made up of students who are majoring in journalism, writers of all sorts. It just could be English majors or even history majors. Anybody who is passionate writing, photographers. We had majors in there who were also into photojournalism, and of course, copy editors who would review the articles once it was been written. The main purpose of the Campus Voice was everybody was driven to capture events, issues, and latest news around campus. We were also motivated to create articles that were well written, factual, and accurate. We also wanted to design, organize, an appealing format of the newspaper using proper editing tools such as any Adobe products like Illustrator or Photoshop. We also developed a professional looking website that houses all our stories as well as archives of the content of the newspaper. The community size, we started out with a small group of people. Actually, our core members were mostly made of 5 members, and that was just because we didn't have that many people. But overall, we did have 12 members when you include everybody in there. The advisor is the person who had professional experience in the journalism field and can advise the students on journalism ethics, reporting techniques, and writing skills. Our advisor at that time was somebody who was a senior, who was a editor in chief of a local newspaper here in Jacksonville, who graduated from Columbia University, has been in the newspaper business for 30 years. And then our editor in chief, he's mainly in charge of assigning stories, approving written articles and photographs, and finalizing decisions. Our copy editor reviews the stories after they have been written for grammatical, punctual, and factual errors. And then we have our writers, who are responsible for researching and writing the stories, conducting interviews with sources, and following up with the editor in chief. And then you also have your photographer, who captures the photographs associated with the stories and writing the captions for the pictures. The graphic designer, the person who manages the layout of the newspaper by placing the articles, pictures, and advertisement into the proper format. And then our web developer, who is in charge of uploading all the content into the website and designing the format it's housed in. The community has changed and evolved over time. It was first established in 1966 when it was just called Florida Community College at Jacksonville. Then later on, it turned into Florida State College in 2009, which expanded into a 4-year university, which enabled students to earn a bachelor's degree. So as that changed, so did our audience, because now we had more of an expanded audience to reach out to rather than just the community college students. Our members have also changed as students have graduated and we got new members in, and sometimes they would just leave because they didn't find it useful to be a part of the community anymore, but we always had members who were interested in joining. And then the newspaper format web design has gradually developed. Our newspaper format has changed. Just as because we wanted to change the logo, or we know we wanted to fit in more stories, and also the website design has developed. Now there's a Twitter feed into the website. There's Flash. Before it was very basic. None of these actually were around, especially when I started college. Facebook was just a pioneer that was only established in universities, so we didn't have Facebook when we were in community college. So that has changed as well. Our sharing information, we would have weekly meetings and discuss what we were working on, what stories we wanted to write, what was going on around the campus. And in emails, our editor-in-chief would send out emails of any ideas. For example, if there was a health fair going on, he'd go ahead and send an email out to ask who wanted to cover that story. And then you have your outside organization who contributed to the community. For example, our readers who wanted to suggest ideas. They would write letters to the editor. If they found an error in one of our articles, they would also write a letter to the editor letting us know about that. And in our social media, now they have Twitter feed. Before we didn't have any of that, so it's something that's very current in you. And then now they have a contact us form in their website, which if you had any inquiries, you can go ahead and fill in that form. Community value, it enables student journalists like as myself to get real life experiences in the field. Definitely helped me get prepared for my internships or any freelance writing I had to do in the past. It was a chance to interact with the student body. You're not just, sitting in classroom, you're out there, you're talking to students, you're talking to professors, you're talking to people who work around campus when you're interviewing and writing these stories. You also become involved in campus changes and events. For example, if there was a new grading policy, you were the first one to know, you were the first one to let everybody know and communicate that change. And then you also had an opportunity to develop portfolio in case you wanted to work for another newspaper or another writing organization. You could develop a portfolio with this job in this community and be able to show your work of what you've done and your accomplishments. The reason members stay active in this community is because we all have shared interests, which is writing mostly, and also being active within communicating the news and events to our groups and our readers and our spectators. It's professional development. It's a good way to start your career, especially because you learn so much in this community from, meeting deadlines to developing your communication skills to developing your research skills. So it gives you a professional development as well. There's opportunities for grants and work study in case you wanted to, somewhat work but during school, or if you needed a grant to pay for your tuition, they offered that as well. It was a learning experience for those who was interested in the journalism field but didn't know what it was like. It was a chance for them to learn what it is like to be out on that field. And of course, it was also enjoyable because you do interact with lots of different people. You share ideas. You help each other motivate to do better. So that came with that as well. Proportion of this community, I would say 30% are creators. The creators, I would say, people who establish the ideas, who create the content, who basically enable to keep the flow of ideas and thoughts going. And 10% are critics, people who may not necessarily agree with what we write or what they see on the newspaper. So they would be the ones that are writing letters to the editor saying, hey, maybe this wasn't a good idea, or maybe people who just doesn't like how our approach is. 25% would be spectators. I believe that, when we were writing, we didn't get as big of a turnout as we would like to, but we did get enough that we had a lot of people who came up to us and were interested in joining. And that's when it came to 35% joiners. I felt like a lot of people wanted to join, but as soon as they joined, they may have gotten a false expectation. So I felt like spectators were first, before they became joiners, they were first spectators. And later on, after they witnessed what was going on, and they wanted to join the community. So now moving on to the Campus Voice Creator Persona Overview. I just created what the editor-in-chief would be like, and I just named him George Cooper, just a generic name. So he would be a senior at this college, and he would be the editor-in-chief, and he would, of course, be a journalism major. He would be a male student who's 22, and he would probably be an intern in a newspaper, and I would say he would plan to attend Missouri State University for a master's in journalism, because someone at this position may want to continue on to grad school. They would be detail-oriented, exceptional leadership skills, an excellent writer, as you would expect from an editor-in-chief, and somebody who has been an active member for 3 years before taking on that editor position. Their online activities would, of course, include Adobe products. They would know how to work with Photoshop and Illustrator. They would also be active in reading professional newspaper organizations such as the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and USA Today. And they would also be active on social media such as Facebook and Twitter. Quotes, I just made up these quotes. This is something that I thought an editor-in-chief would say. Becoming an editor has been my goal since I joined the Campus Voice. Leading this community to be one of the best college newspaper in this country is something I strive for. As the creator of the Campus Voice community, I need to be the eyes and ears of the organization in order to provide the most accurate and current news. I believe that would be the goal of an editor-in-chief, is to be just the main person that's making sure, all our T's are crossed, our I's are dotted, and all that kind of stuff. And now we have our critic persona. One of my critic persona created is a professor, and this is just a name I made up as well, Dr. Lucy Washington. When I worked as a writer at the Campus Voice, we did have several professors that questioned our what we wrote about, only because they wanted to see different stories in the newspaper, so this is where the idea came from. So this professor is a politics professor at Florida State College. I assume they've been teaching for at least 12 years or more. And I just put they're a member of the Florida Campaign for Liberty. Since they are a politics professor, I would assume they'd be part of some type of campaign activity. Demographics, they would be female, around 55 years old to 60. Income would be $69,000 a year, so somebody who's already well off and knows what they want and what they want to see. And before teaching, they had a professional job as a district attorney for 15 years, because this person would probably be kind of like a know-it-all in the field and has seen or heard pretty much everything, so they know what to advise on as far as when giving out critiques to newspapers. They would be opinionated and determined to speak the truth. And I can imagine they would be a former lobbyist in Washington, D.C. This person would also be updated with the news, constantly watching C-SPAN, CNN, and Fox News. If they're a professor, they would be on Blackboard. And they would also be on professional social media sites such as LinkedIn, and even be a blogger of some sort. Quotes would be, I want to teach the students the history of politics, and newspapers should reflect both sides of the political parties. And here's the quote, as a critic of the Campus Voice community, I need to be able to advise students on the real issues happening on campus. Now we have our spectator overview. Another name I created, Hannah Bailey. I imagine our spectator would be more of the younger students who are new to the campus. So this is somebody who is a second year at Florida State College, and they're an English major. This is a female who's 19, who loves to read James Patterson books and plans to work for a publishing company after school. This person loves to write and is open to joining groups in school to become more active in the campus life. As I mentioned before, spectators usually become sometimes joiners, so this would be a prospective joiner, as I assume. Online activity would be learning Microsoft Office Suite, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and Facebook. Twitter, Pinterest, and Tumblr would be their social media. And their quotes would be, I'm looking to join a campus organization to enhance my student life. I love to read and write. Literature is my passion. And that covers basically what my community is about and what I would assume my personas would be as well.